Namaste, Jai Bharat. The Upanishads gives out lots of principles, call them as diamonds of knowledge. There are many things which were in the Upanishads were brought very explicit by Buddhism subsequently. One such thing of temporariness, which is brought out by Buddhism and made prominent in the sense popularized it is the theory of momentariness. Kshanikavada in Sanskrit, theory of momentariness, which says that nothing is permanent. Everything is for the time being, momentary, temporary, for the time being. Well, this is appears to be, and also if you look back to your experience, everything is that. Everything is temporary. Nothing is permanent forever. This between 2 points things do exist. Now the idea in geopolitics of the so-called superpower is also temporary. I just see the history to speak of this. Somewhere in 15th century, these are all AD. Europe's stories are mostly AD. There's no BC for them. Spain used to be a superpower. Spanish silver was the so-called silver in which the world was trading. Spanish silver was pure silver because they had a lot of silver mines, Spain. And you look at the so-called superpowers characters, you find it consistently with all these people which I'm going to mention. Spain, their currency silver was something like world currency those days. Now, when I say world, don't take world literally. The Europeans always thought Europe as the world. That's how they named both the European wars as world wars. Well, that is the vision. They had narrow world in front of them, not the real panoramic complete world. Well, that's how they see things. We may repeat those words, but not really meaning it in that sense. Spain had their army, maybe navy as well, placed in different parts, different other countries. They were superpower. Then, when they become superpower, when they become authority, these few things which you find consistently with other so-called superpowers, they also did. And they were the first one to do that. One, they stopped making things. They need not make things. They can buy from others. Well, so their silver started flowing to other places. Then their military expenses were more, much more than what they could afford. Just because of their authority, ego, and pomp and show, etc., they had to maintain a very large army. That is expensive. They had to meet the expense. And once it started, they had to maintain it. So they were running into problems. Then what Spain did those days is that instead of minting silvers with pure silver, they started mixing copper, other metals in that, slowly, and subsequently, and the price remains the same. And in time, no silver was left, only other metals. Spanish silver was not really silver any longer. And in the meantime, they were not making anything. Rather, they were not working. They lived by buying things. Others, the money started flowing to other nations. Subsequently, Spanish authority collapsed. They could not maintain their army. The people suddenly suffered a economic wreck from within. They had problems, uncertainty, and the superpower Spain collapsed. That's how a superpower ends. Several stages you can identify a collapse of superpower from beginning to total destruction. From that point, Spain had never gone back to their erstwhile status in 15th century. They still remain as any other nations in Europe, not claiming, not assuming any special place or prominence. The second instance is that of the United Kingdom. It took a little more time. UK was once upon a time is said to be an empire where the sun never sets. So large, so wide. Small nation, UK actually, but they were a superpower once upon a time. They brought income from their colonies, primarily my nation. All the wealth of Bharat they drained, and overnight Bharat got impoverished and England became rich. Well, there's no point in complaining. The time was that. Colonialization, etc., etc. The time was such. Let's consider that we had bad time. That's it. And they also had a very large army and also navy, of course. The UK had a great navy, and that was very expensive again. They had to station their military in all kinds of places which were very expensive. Then, though they had factories in London, they also found it convenient to buy instead of struggling and making themselves. Well, this also led to problems within UK. In spite of all the money which they were getting from colonies, they also had faced problems. But this became more intense with the two European wars. With the First European War itself, they wanted to take lead because they are superpower, and that war has destroyed them greatly. Before they could recover, the Second European War takes place. And that was more than sufficient to destroy England. And England ceases to be superpower. And in 1947, when they had to leave Bharat as a colony, that was the final nail on the coffin. And afterwards, UK could not get that position of superpower. Then is Soviet Union. Soviet Union, that time when UK was superpower, the British pound sterling was the world currency. Like the Spanish silver was the world currency once. This time it was British pound sterling was the world currency. But with the Soviet Union coming, they were assuming to be superpower. But their currency ruble did not become world currency. They stationed their army in different places, not to the extent of UK in the past. Their authority was satellites. Well, the invisible people living in this outer space. And that kind of authority they had. And that also collapsed, not primarily because of the work of CIA, that was a catalyst. They also could not maintain their military might. They also had to collapse. Only thing, the ruble was not international currency, but their army had station, and they disintegrated because the Union of Soviet, that is Union of so-called Soviet Socialist Republic, was a synthetic unity. They had nothing in common except the brutal authority of communism. Well, that collapsed, but Russia survived, and that's a third time we see a superpower collapsing because they were they were forced to spend much more than what they could afford. They could not generate sufficient revenue to run that kind of a big show. And now today, you know what I am going to speak about is the America. They are in the same boat. They're sailing towards the same direction. They all have this character of arrogance, supremacy, bloated up ego. America also is placing their military might all over the world in multiple manner. The world is trading in US dollar. They think that's going to be always the case. But the decline is visible. The dollar is slowly getting sidelined. America is buying more than what they can afford. They don't make anything seriously. They find it easy to buy. They can't make because making something there will be more expensive than buying it from other countries which are of better quality. And all these stories are going to one direction. And I am sure it shall not take long time. It shall not take long time for a collapse of America as superpower. No matter how Trump struggles, how brutal he behaves, how impulsively behaves, he thinks, by annexing Greenland, annexing this, getting that would improve, but then their structure is crumbling. That's an inevitable, unnecessary end. And they are also soon shall cease to be superpower. Then what people want shall take place, should be. That's from a unipolar world, it's become multipolar world with sovereign nations coexisting, where mutual respect is a natural phenomenon. You give respect and take respect, and respect is not demanded, it has to be commanded to your function, work, quality, whatever. So this shall be the future, I suppose. So this kind of bullying, what US does, shows, indicates the end of a such regime of supremacy, etc., etc. We shall not be for a long time. We shall meet again. Namaste. Jai Bharat, Jai Siya Ram.